Hello, I'm Mark Price. I'd like to talk to you today about pleasing God. But first, there was a classroom and the teacher asked the class if anyone knew where God lived. And this one little boy raised his hand, all excited. I do. And the teacher calls on him and says, okay, well, tell me, where does God live? The little boy says, in the bathroom. Teacher's shocked, and she said, what do you mean in the bathroom? What makes you say that God lives in the bathroom? Little boy says, well, every day my mother goes to the bathroom, and when she gets to the door is locked. And she always yells out, God, are you still in there? So there you go. Kids, listen, huh? And then the teacher asked a second question. Says, does anyone know God's name? Same boy raises his hand. Me, I do. And teacher calls on him and says, yes, what is God's name? Little boy smiled and said, Andy. Teacher looked at him kind of funny and said, what do you mean, Andy? Where do you get that? Where do you get God's name as Andy? Little boy said, well, like the song. Andy walks with me, Andy talks with me, and he knows I am his own. There, see, kids, as I said, they listen. So today I want to talk to you about pleasing God. The readings today can help to focus us, give us three things we can do to please God. From the first reading today, from the book of Sirach, sometimes called Ecclesiasticus, one of the wisdom books, we hear that God favors the humble, the people who have humility, the people who live their lives as people who are humble. This is what we are called to do. We want to please God. We should be people with humility. Now, what does humility mean? What does it mean to be humble? C.S. Lewis said, it does not mean, humility does not mean that you think less of yourself. It's just that you think of yourself less. So don't think of ourselves as often as we normally do. Think about others from time to time. One of the opposites of humility is pride. And pride is dangerous because pride closes us off. When we have pride, we can't be healed, we can't be helped, we can't learn because we think we know more. We think we're better than. There have been studies done recently worldwide, and one of the things that causes problems in the world with regards to people with pride and selfishness is addictions, whether it's addictions to gambling, to alcohol, to drugs, to the internet, to cell phones. Whatever the addiction is, it makes us more prideful because it makes us more thinking about ourselves and making ourselves the priority. What I want. The concept of delayed gratification doesn't exist. We want everything today. And that is why God wants us to be humble. He wants us to be people with humility. As C.S. Lewis said, remember, it's about thinking of ourselves less, not thinking less of ourselves. There was a song in the 70s, Mac Davis sang it. Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble when you're perfect in every way. I can't wait to look in the mirror. I get better looking each day. To know me is to love me. I must be a hell of a man. Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble, but I'm doing the best that I can. So we have to be people, if we want to please God, we want to be humble. We want to be people with humility and live our lives as people with humility. The second reading today from the letter to the Hebrews tells us that we should choose Christ. This letter talks about two mountains, Mount Sinai and Mount Zion. And Mount Sinai is referring to the people of the first covenant, that covenant that God made with Abraham. And when you look at Mount Sinai and the Israelites with Moses, it says they were fearful of seeing God at Mount Sinai, of going to the mountain of Mount Sinai because God was there. They trembled, it says. They trembled in fear. So what the reading is telling us is that the first covenant people are the people who saw God as something that made them afraid. It was an all-powerful God, and it made them tremble when they thought of God, when they thought of going to where God was. But the new covenant people, we have Mount Zion. And it says when you go to Mount Zion, you are going to the new covenant. You're going into Christ. You're going into the new Jerusalem. So the second reading is saying that we should choose Christ. Let us choose Mount Zion. Let us choose the God through Christ that gets us into heaven. The God through Christ who died on that cross, who suffered as a sacrifice for all of us so that we could have heaven. It is a choice that we make. So the first reading tells us that we should choose humility. Second reading says that we should choose Christ. These are things we can do to please God. And in the gospel today, we learn that we should choose others. Jesus tells the parable, the story of a dinner party. And he says when you go to a dinner party, you don't want to just go and then pick the best seat. That's our natures, right? This is another view or another look at being people who are people with humility, people who are humble. Don't just assume you should be in the best seat. Don't take the best seat. Jesus says if you do that and then somebody of higher standing comes in, the fellow, the man, the woman, the host will tell you, you have to move down to another seat and make room for this other person, and you'll be embarrassed. So what Jesus is saying is when you go to the dinner party, don't take the seat of most prestige. Take a seat further down the way, and then the host can then call you forward, and you will look good and instead of embarrassed. So I remember visiting San Simeon and Hearst Castle. And William Randolph Hearst had a system. When you went to his house for dinner, his dining room at Hearst Castle was a very large dining room with a very long table, chairs all around it. And when you were there for the first time to dinner, you were given a seat right close to William Randolph Hearst, right up next to him. But the longer you stayed, the more days you stayed, the more often you came to meals, the further you were pushed down the line, further away from William Randolph Hearst. So there was a pecking order as to how you are seated. Jesus is saying to us, let us not just assume that we should have the best seat. Let's take into account other people. Let's not look at ourselves as more important than other people. And then Jesus gives us a second part of the parable, the story. He says, when you throw a dinner party, you should invite not what you normally do, which is just your close friends and relatives or people who might make your life better or help you out financially or help you get ahead. He says what you should be doing is you should be inviting the less fortunate, the lame, the blind, the people who can't benefit you in any way. That's who you should invite. People who can never repay you. That's who you should invite. So Jesus is telling us that we should be humble in how we act and react when we are going to a dinner party. But when we throw our own, what we should do is make sure we have people there that we are helping them and they cannot repay us or benefit us in any way. And one way to do these things, one way that we can please God by learning and reminding ourselves to choose humility, to choose Christ, and to choose others, is by participating in things of the church, events of the church, ministries in the church. And as luck would have it, today here at St. Luke's, I'm going to be presenting to you a new ministry called the Lay Pastor Society. It has been important to me for, since around 1980. And so it's been a lot of years. It's a simple ministry. It's an easy ministry. But Mother Teresa said, none of us can do great things, only little things with great love. And that's the kind of ministry it is. So why do we need the Lay Pastor Society? Number one, we have a lack of priests. We all know that. There's a lack of priests all over the world, and we need lay people to assume responsibility. Not sacramental responsibility. I've read the Bible many times, and there's no place that I could find in the whole Bible that says, let the priests do it. The priests, nuns, let them do everything. We, as people of Christ, we as people baptized, are called to participate in this family of God, to be participants. So the Lay Pastor Society allows us to participate, again, not sacramentally, but by loving each other, caring about each other, being there for each other. So lack of priests is one of the reasons this ministry is so important. Another reason, I was on an airplane many years ago, and I was sitting next to a woman, and we get to talking, and she said, where are you going? And I told her, I think it was Boston, and she said, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm in ministry. And she says, oh, I hate people like you. I said, excuse me? I said, ma'am, this is an awfully long flight. And she says, but I do. She says, I've seen too many things that tell me what hypocrites you are. And I said, well, I'm sorry that you feel that way. I said, can you please explain to me what your thoughts are? She said, I'm a nurse. She said, I'm an oncology nurse. I'm on the oncology floor at the hospital in San Diego. And we had a patient not long ago come in, and she was dying of cancer. And I would go and visit with her in her room, and it seems that she was crying. Whenever she wasn't asleep, she was crying. And day after day, she'd be crying, and I'd go in and try to comfort her. And I asked her, I said, did you ever go and ask the woman why she was crying? And she said, I did. And she said, that's why I don't like people like you. She said, I sat down with her and I said, sweetheart, tell me, what's wrong? Why are you crying so much? She said, I'll tell you. She says, I'm a Catholic. I've been going to the same church most all of my life, and I'm active in my church. I make a tuna surprise for the potlucks. I'm known for my tuna surprise. I wash and iron the linens they use on the altars. I'm very active and have been for many years. Now I'm 56 years old. I'm laying in this hospital bed, dying of cancer. Not one of those people have even come to see me. And I thought to myself, that's why we need the Lay Pastor Society, so there's maybe a better way to communicate with everybody when somebody is there. It is not right calling ourselves a family if we let family members die alone. Another reason I think this kind of ministry is very important, years ago in the San Diego Union, I read an article about a young girl named Cindy. It said that she started to go to Mass one day, out of the blue. Just started showing up, and she'd sit about 5 rows back, 4 or 5 people over, every Sunday for 3 months. We Catholics are kind of nutty like that, aren't we? We have our place where we go. That pew, that spot on that pew, that's ours. God forbid you ever go to another Mass. Someone is sitting in your seat and they think it's theirs. It's almost like there's a big magnet sucks us right in. So Cindy goes every single Sunday, sitting in the same place for 3 months. And then she stopped about as fast as she started coming. Maybe somebody wondered what happened to her, I don't know. But there was an article in the paper that read, Cindy, 18 years old, died. And what's worse, it says she committed suicide. But that's not even the saddest part of the whole story. The saddest part was they found a note, nice, neat, folded up in her purse. And they opened it and it read, Dear Mom and Dad, I'm taking my own life because I don't believe anyone will miss me. I don't believe anyone cares. I don't believe that I have a reason to live. And she signed it, and the worst part, the saddest part, she dated it. The note was dated 3 months prior. So it's almost as if Cindy had planned to take her life, sat down, wrote the note, and then started to think, wait a minute, I was raised differently than this. I was raised that taking your life is wrong, that you shouldn't take your own life. And so she got to thinking, well, I can turn to somebody, and she thought, well, I could turn back to church. I can go back to church. They'll be there for me. So she folded up the note nice and neat, put it in her purse, and started going to Mass. Every single Sunday for 3 months, sitting 4 or 5 rows back, 4 or 5 people over, hoping against hope that maybe, just maybe, somebody'd notice her. Somebody'd go over to her and say, are you new here? I don't recognize you. We have a youth group. Do you want to get involved? I want to introduce myself. It's almost as if she felt more alone sitting in the big church in that same pew than she did when she actually was alone, contemplating and then finally taking her own life. So we have to be people as a family of God, as a parish, who care about each other, who are there for each other. Jesus said the greatest commandments, love God and love each other. The theme verse for the lay pastors is John 21:16. If you love me, tend my sheep. So those are a couple reasons as to why the ministry is needed. So how does it work? You take the parish, you divide it into groups of 20 families. And every one of you that agrees to become a lay pastor, you're given those names of those 20 families. So you have 20 families, and all you do is simply call them once a month. A simple phone call. I'm thinking about you. I care about you. You're not alone. That is all the ministry is. It's connecting a family. And yet, by that simple phone call, there are many success stories. A priest at a parish once, Father Hal, took over 20 families, was calling them, felt something was off, and hung up the phone and went to the person's house, interrupted a suicide attempt. So when we are putting ourselves in the hands of God, we allow God to work miracles. I was standing outside of a bank one day in Alpine, and a woman came up to me and she said, "Are you the fellow that started that lay pastor thing at the parish?" And I said, "Yes." And she says, "I want you to know something. That's sometimes the only call I get in a month." You know, most of us would rather turn off the phone, not get calls. But there are people out there who are very lonely, who are getting no calls. And one of the responsibilities for us as family is to be there for each other, to reach out to each other, and to make a simple phone call is a small thing to do. But as I said, Mother Teresa said, none of us can do great things, only small things with great love. So based on the readings today, pleasing God. If we want to please God, choose humility, choose Christ, and choose others. And becoming a lay pastor is a wonderful way for you to choose others, to put others first, to learn what it means to live humbly. Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble, but I'm doing the best that I can. This is Mark Price. Thanks for listening.